Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of an angelic frequency. I sit today in front of you in the Malaysian lands, quite distracted. As I started this video, I noticed a helicopter fly across the sky. There's just a lot of interference as I sat to turn on my camera. This entire morning had been pure tranquility without a sound, without a noise, where I am in the middle of nowhere. And as I sat, I noticed the lawnmower going off in front of the condominium, and now a helicopter flying above my head. Distractions are vast and abroad in a way that will suck us in to the doing of our everyday doing as we sit and try to tranquilize the distortion fields around us, to ever so gently or ever so slowly pay attention to certain aspects within the self of all selves, to meditate silently in our minds, in our brains, in our heart, has always been a defeated frequency within all frequencies. Whether or not you have the intention to sit in silence and pray, whether or not you have the intention to never distinctualize the differentiation between the meaning of silence and the meaning of prayer, whether or not you've never ever had the intention to ever sit in front of a camera scope to describe your feelings, to record your day, to vlog away as the influencer that you are or are not. Whether or not you'd want to pull out that camera to snap a snapshot of life's overarching arteries, of tranquilized defeats, of happiness, of joyous events, of marriages, of childhood grievances, of childhood lost and gained through the epic events that we celebrate on an annual basis, year round, like clockwork, ladies and gentlemen. As my nose tickles a bit, I pause in frequented thoughts of all of the things that could distract us through our day-to-day living, through our day-to-day life. And I give props, I give tranquility in the essence of all of the props that I can ever give to a humanitarian field living in defeated frequencies within the Luciferian realm of what is. And today, as I sit here to record this video, distractions are abroad, distractions are aplenty. On the backside of my camera that you cannot see is the interior of the house that I'm currently living at. And you can see Cotton, my dog, glaring out the window, looking so content at where I'm sitting, trying to gain my attention field. And as I sit to discuss, to open up to these energies of the world today, and speak of something that so much so needed to be touch base upon in the delinquency field that we sit within. I find myself being distracted even in the midst of the forest, the Malaysian descended forest of Malaysian descent. And as I made it out here with my family to find a little bit of joyous peace in the contentment in knowing that there's not much civilization where we are, in the contentment of being and seeing and feeling civilization from afar, in the contentment of experiencing nature in itself from a perspective of silence, I still find myself being distortedly objectified within the distortion field of nuances that could pop up within any specific moment in time to keep us distracted. And that's just that. As I open up to today's topic in regards to distraction and all of the meanings within the Luciferian realm of the energetic frequencies and portals that have been built around doubt frequency that have sank us so deeply and so tenderly into the distracted frequency in which was crafted and had never not been crafted for us to sink into, to divulge ourselves into, as a whole entire humanity field begins to awaken, unbeknownst to you, unbeknownst to I, unbeknownst to all. This energy sweeps across us in any moment in time of a field of distractive feet, of a field of non-distractive feet, no matter how you intend to set your intentions in the beginning of the day, at the end of the nights of fruition, just know that this field that is being held over our heads has been anchored down, had been anchored down within dimensional frequencies for eons and eons of evolutionary feats within our existence. And it had always been something we've been born into. It's never been something that had never not been there upon realization of ourselves as a fractaled soul, as a non-fractaled soul, as a non-fragmented soul, as a baby soul, as an adult soul, as a soul with a consciousness, as a consciousness, noticing the differentiation in all of the ways that we've been able to sit through our defeated essence within the frequencies, within the tranquilization of what is. And as I sit here to tell you the story of Yeshua and that one fateful night that his soul frequency descended down upon Gaia's surface within extraterrestrial means of deliverance into the grandest deliverance of an encompassment of a frequency that you can ever envision or imagine to never have not touched down upon Gaia's surface within her core and upon her being. In betrudging to the layer of doubt frequency that I described to be a reality field, in betrudging to the layer within this Luciferian realm that pushed aside the epic distortion field of Yeshua's field for all of this time, in all of these years, within thousands upon thousands of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, the field within Yeshua's field that decided to, one fateful night, on one starry morning, descend down into the field of Gaia's frequency, had never so much been that of the frequency of the all, and had it never so much been that of the frequency of the all as it is today within this distortional field of never-ending alls, within separations of it all. Yeshua is a story that I shall touch base on, and perhaps not so much in detail today. And yet, as I download this information from the ethers, from a source consciousness that had so tenderly carried out this blueprinted frequency within our creation field that had fractaled out our very own tenderness of a realm within our quantum verse, within Gaia's sphere, within the story of how humanity landed here on this rock, on this little rock, betrudged by the shining brightness of the sun's rays, rotating in circular motions within the quantum verse along these energetic ley lines that projects into and out of a reality field within the darkness, within the very narrow pits of the darkness that you can ever sink down into, to experience these defeated frequencies within Yeshua's field that he had decided to drop down upon once upon a time in no time, ladies and gentlemen. And as we mention his name, more and more will people begin to vibrate within their souls, bearing a memory of all that had meant to be memorized distinctually and indistinctually within the codependency and the coherency of the vibrational frequency of this name, Yeshua, sits a vibrational frequency so tender, so strong in the strings that it rings in our ears, to open up our perception field, to alleviate that in which our memories can never dictate for us to not remember in a moment in time of ascension syndromes and symptoms, in which Yeshua had never not been a part of our humanity field, a part of our humanitarian field. For best and for final, the way that I can describe this frequency as it rings in our ears, as it rings in our heart chakra, as it brings tenderness in the deliverance of all of the messaging scopes within all of the messaging systems, within all of the quantum verses alike, the frequency and the word Yeshua that rings so deeply and so tenderly in our soul's bearing will begin to vibrate in the souls, in the hearts, in the minds of civilization alike as we near the ending upon a new beginning of a mountainscape, of a mountainscope, without bearing, without tearing, without tearing, of what that could mean, leading up to the ascension symptoms and syndromes that have been incoming into our field, within and without extraterrestrial means of descent, within and without the Lord's means of descent within frequency, within and without the means of the energetic frequency that had already never not been anchored into our reality field for all of this time, for all of these eons and eons of recreational feats, within the defendant normality, within our consciousness and without the Luciferian scheme of things. I sit to tell you a story of the hodgepodge of energetic frequencies and fields that could ever linger in the fields of our energy body within any specific moment in time. And as I tell these stories, just know that you may or may not want to tap out in any moment in time. And it is quite okay if you do, if you don't, if you stay, if you linger, regardless of what you choose to do. These words, these letters, these contingencies within the coherency of the word Yeshua will never not lean on your shoulders, perch up upon your back, perch up upon the everlasting essence of that in which you've never not been in the middle of the nights of all nights. And as it begins to do so in your sleep, as it begins to do so in your memories, as it begins to do so in the moments in time when you've decided to never not come into a realization of that in which Yeshua could ever mean within the energetic scope of things, just know that no matter whether or not you decide to stay, to linger around, to listen to what I have to say, that the memories that this video scope, this projection field, this annihilation of the darkness within the brightness will begin to trigger in to your soul's bearing, not of which or in which you hear in the news, not of which or in which you hear amongst your peers, not of which or in which you know to be true as an essence within a humanitarian field that tells you the truth to alleviate the falsities within the self. Yet, within the depths of our soul's bearing, we will begin to come into realization of this activation of a personal connection harbored within our soul that can never be severed with the frequency of the words Yeshua is here, Yeshua is now, Yeshua is you, Yeshua is I, Yeshua is all, within the bearing of all of the bearings that can ever distract us into the momentary fields or momentary feats of what it could ever mean to not be trudged into and onto this energy field. Nothing in this world, within the Luciferian realm or otherwise, can ever stop this frequency within Yeshua's field from interlinking, intertrudging, betrudging, effervescently sinking in to that energy field that is yours, that is mine, that is all, that has never not been all, within creation field itself. And as I sit to tell a story as old as man himself, as old as man itself, as old as time has ever been able to dictate what the meaning of time could even mean, as old as creation within itself, of whether or not it has gone physical, whether or not it has been spiritual, as old as the argument that you could ever argue against humanitarian field or not, of whether or not God exists within a lingering spectrum of fields within spirituality, as old as time itself could ever tell the tales of a humanitarian field that had decided to descend down within our reality field to experience all that it is not, within the realization of all that it had never not been. And as that we come across the end of times within tribulated times of biblical structures, all of the wording within the biblical structures of what is will be hindered in, hindered down, deciphered into, broken into a delinquency field of he said, she said, a hodgepodge of deciphering of what this passage could mean or what that passage does mean. Within the end of times, within the end of days, a confusion will run rampant as to who to trust, who not to trust within this field. What is real? What has never not been true to begin with? had never not been the essence of Yeshua's field within your core. Within the core of the contingency of your frequency sits an energetic fluctuation of keys to be tinkered with and fluttered with, to trigger in the activation of your 14 chakra alignments that will begin to trigger in and to be pulled into fruition as Gaia begins her ultimate destination of awakening within this darkness to shake off this Luciferian blueprint that she so deservingly decided to experience on behalf of humanitarian field in itself, as Gaia had never not been the center perspective of the story that I tell. The very first planetary field within deception itself that had been deceived into dropping down into her reality field to merge into the darkness of what is, to want to experience that in which of the lowest frequency within our creation field, holds a braveness like no other, holds a tenderness that can never not be seen or said to be real within the untruth densities of it all. And yet the reality of it can never escape us in the escapism that we've built around the lingering words, the lingering energetic frequency, the lingering meaning of what the word escapism could ever mean within this moment in time, within fruition, within codependency of what it means to even be human to begin with. As you've come into a realization, Gaia has a soul. Gaia herself, himself, itself, had never not been a divine masculine blueprint within a divine feminine means of portrayal, of betrayal, of all of the frequencies that you can ever envision to be true and real. The one that has been misguided and misdepended on within our frequency had never not been the way that Gaia had been persuaded to fractal out a part of the tenderness within her frequency, to diversify that in which of the experience within the contingency of a creation field, to born into a planetary field within the divine masculine lineage of all blueprints, to shift into a divine masculine blueprint within the divine feminine blueprinted scope of the entirety of this quantum verse itself. And yet, as we sit here in 2026, in the time approaching 2027 in contingency and coherency as we lead up to the ascension symptoms and syndromes of what is that has already trickled down into our consciousness and effects of the alignment, the realignment within Gaia's surface and upon her core, all of her chakra systems, all of her 14, 15, 16, 18, indefinitely in codependency of all of the limitless chakras that I can ever touch base on. And yet to place a limitation on the numbering system of how many chakras we hold within our energy body transcends into the way Source had designed this reality field to behave in a moment in time of no time, when chakra systems will begin to collapse in itself as we know it, as we head into the tribulations, as we head into the ascension symptoms and syndromes of what is. Our root chakra, ladies and gentlemen, will begin to collapse in, along with the 2D, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional frequency in contingency within coherency upon her surface and upon her being and upon her core. And as I sit here to speak of her in this moment in time within a divine masculine framework, within a divine feminine scope of things, within our frequency, within our quantum verse, just know that she had never not been a he to begin with, and that he had never not been a she to begin with, a hodgepodge of blueprinted reality fields within one singularity of a field, of a creature, within creation itself, designed to hold all that there could ever be within the darkness, in frequency, in contingency, in coherency, to balance out the portaling systems within our quantum verse into a fruition of negativity, positivity, into a hodgepodge of brightness versus darkness, into a contingency of light, of darkness so great, so contrasted in all that it could ever be, into a hodgepodge of femininity and masculinity, never not being able to decipher between the two of what is, into a hodgepodge of the two of what is swirling into a fruition of confusion within a humanitarian field of what the deciphering between the two could ever mean within our energetic bodies as the planetary alignments begin to align into fruition, to open up our distortional chakras and realign them into an alignment system of not being able to count how many chakras we have, but to collapse all of that within the lower realms of what is back into the higher frequencies within contingency, within coherency of what shall never not be. A divine reflection within the self, created to forevermore reflect upon each other, the contingencies within the self, within this reflective mirror and field that we see on a divine masculine and divine feminine level of it, of what is, of what shall never not be, a codependency within the all upon the opposite, upon the mirroring system of reflection itself, within itself. And the confusion of the words that I use may run rampant in your energy body, causing you to tap out of this frequency that I speak of. But if you stick with me till the end, my videos are typically no longer than 50 minutes in fruition due to a specific, spectacular reason that I shall not discuss in this moment in time. And yet, as I sit here to gain your attention, I do not care as much as whether or not you're listening, whether or not you tap out, whether or not you come into fruition with this frequency that I hold. As I have faith, I hold trust in my heart chakra that what had never not been created by source will never not be retracted within this consciousness when the time is right, when the contingency is right. When the time comes that you begin to come into a fruition of a realization that it had never been outside of you, that all of God's creation had never not been created to be held within your heart chakra, ladies and gentlemen. And as you raise your hands in church, in prayer, in accordance to the instructions of the preacher, of the pastor, of the church leader, of the fellowship, of God, of whoever instructing you to raise your hands to the ethers, just know that those hands had never not been a part of a codependency field within a coherency field of needing not to be raised to the sky, but in essence, needing to project a light so bright into your heart chakra within the protective frequency, within the negative and positive polarity of what is. As all that you wish to catch, as you raise your hands above into the sky, as all that you wish to deliver, as you receive your hands above your heads, had never not become the kingdom of heaven inside of who you are, inside of your heart chakra, had never not been what you have always never not been, within and without this frequency field that you've been delivered to be perplexed enough to have wanted to or needed to raise your hand with the crowd, to receive these energetic frequencies from the ethers, to blast these energetic frequencies into the ethers. But as you do so, ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far into my video, the kingdom of heaven had never not been outside of you. And yet within you is the placement of the source frequency that had never not acted as a barrier within the delinquency field of who and what you are and how you perceive your reality to never not be, within the truth and the densities of what is. And as this delinquency field begins to lift, just know that within the heart chakra, within the placement that you do not hold your hands in prayer on this chest of yours, is where the importance of this energy lies, of where the end all of and be all of the source energy that you receive on a daily, of the faith that never runs dry on a weekly, of the mourning that never runs into a distortional field, of all of the mourning that you can ever hold and host in your energy body. Just know that as you raise your hand to the sky in prayer, that all of the energetic fields within the Luciferian scope of things, in contingency with what you've been doing, had you not recognized the energetic frequency in the room, will unequivocally, absolutely, irrevocably allow you and cause you to absorb this frequency within the room upon free will, regardless of whether or not it holds light, regardless of whether or not the intentions within the darkness absorbs the light that you project, regardless of whether or not your intention had always been to raise your hand to the Lord. You will receive. You will receive monumentally in this way the negativity, the positivity, the intentions within this distortional field. And regardless of whether or not your pastor, your preacher, your church leader has ample light, holds ample light within this distortional field that he sits in and he walks in, there's something else in the room. There will always be something else in the room projecting into and out of this frequency field within any crowd, within any church, within any distortional field, ladies and gentlemen, as it has never not been a galactic war, as it has never not been a war of evil versus good, as it has never not been a war of positivity versus negativity, as it has never not been a war of turmoil versus peace, as it has never not been known within this humanitarian field that all of these energies intermingled into one can never not be within a separated state of what is within the room that you stand in prayer and hold your hands up high to the sky to receive all of these energies, regardless good or bad, regardless of certain intentions. As you hold your hands up, ladies and gentlemen, you receive. You receive the intentions of the good, of the bad, of the evil, and sometimes, so to say, as I've experienced it in the very first church ceremony, so to say, of congressional hearing within our quantum verse, within the Malaysian lands of what is, as I sat and preached within my heart chakra in protection to realign all of the heart chakras of all of the participants in the room within the church that I had attended for the first time, to check out the scene as I had been led there by a source frequency for belonging, for community in which I had never not found in myself to begin with. And yet, as I proceeded to tap into the frequency within this congregation, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to all, unbeknownst to what would come near the end of this quote unquote hearing, that had never not been felt by all in their day-to-day life as they betrudge into the faith that they hold in Yeshua's field, wanting to be guided and to be led into a congregation of sorts, into a community of sorts, into Yeshua's arms and light, to be reminded of biblical structures and words of what is. No matter what the reasoning for you to attend church, just know that as you do in your physical, as you raise your hands up to the sky, you are receiving the good, receiving the bad, receiving the negativity, receiving the wars, receiving into source frequency all that creation can never not intend for you to receive. And yet, as your intentions are good to reconnect with the source frequency, I'm here to warn you to never let those hands not touch into this heart chakra where Yeshua had preached once upon a time in protection, that the kingdom of heaven had never not been within and without this frequency of what is. And as you do so, as you walk upon the footsteps of this lingering Luciferian field, just know that even God's house, even God's field, even God's unrelinquishing energetic frequency within the portals of what is can never not bring you into the darkness of what is in a moment in time that it wanted you, that it wants you, that it urges you to open up your third eye chakra, to see, to know, to feel, to get to know Source in an intimate way, to get to know Yeshua as his name rings true in all of the vibrational frequencies that you can ever dictate to be true or real, to get to know, period, in the essence of the self, within the kingdom of heaven. to formulate this connection so deeply and so truly that it reverberates throughout your footsteps in every single day, in every single lingering moment, in every single second of your life. You've never been severed from this frequency, regardless of whether or not you raise your hands to the sky or not, regardless of whether or not you recognize Yeshua is even a conceptualization within this reality field or not, regardless of all of the reasons why you step into that church. Just be careful, ladies and gentlemen. And as I sit here to preach these words, just know that you will never be in the wrong place in the right time, in the wrong frequency at the right time, in the right frequency in the wrong time, in the wrongness of the rightness of it all. All will be trudged into a grand forgiveness in the end of times, where you shall kiss Yeshua's feet and toes, where you should lean your head against the ground in reverberation with the vibrational field of this land, as it vibrates through your body, what it means to be a part of the all in the all within the end of times. And as you raise your hands to the sky, just know that this energy frequency that reverberates back into your soul's bearing can never not be held onto in a moment in time when you've never not been able to come into a realization of who and what you are. And yet, within your deception field, you've done just that. You've never not been able to not come into a realization of who you've never not been. And yet, within this deception field, you've done just that. And no matter who I speak to, no matter who has made it to this portion, this aspect of the video, which is a minute, if ever, a specific percentage within the 0.000 few percent of people that could hold their delinquency field within the consciousness of where they've raised up to in the skies, into the bearings of what is, to protrude through the truth within the darkness of what is. No matter who you are, if you're listening or not, this projection field was never meant for humanity, for humanitarian field as a whole. As I know, as you begin to tap into this delinquency field, it will open up to you, reverberating outwards from your heart chakra. As you lean into the truth of things, just know that never once, never for once, never for final, never for always, never forever will Yeshua's frequency not reverberate in every single cellular structure within your body. And for once and for final, this darkness that you've been absorbing as you raise your hands up in prayer will begin to sort itself out as you realign your chakra systems within this contingency in accordance to the universal laws of awakening that we've set forth to pull ourselves into fruition within the delinquency field that is Gaia's field, that has never not been Gaia's field to begin with, within and without this distortional field of what is. And as we sit here in the midst of 2026, in the turmoil that has begun to rise as we near the ending of the first week of March, and for those of you who've made it to this far apart within the perception field of this reality field within this video, just know that the Iranian war had never been not planned and plotted by a source consciousness to lead us, to guide us into the fruition of awakening, into the death toll, into the darkness, into the Luciferian scheme of things, to trigger in the greatest and grandest ascension frequency within the dissension normality of the laws and the rules of this quantum verse that we shall follow prior to awakening, according to the free will scheme within humanity. To respect that is all that source came to do, is all that Yeshua could ever do upon your free will to awaken within the darkness of what is. And as we lean into a humanitarian field of turmoil, as I sat in this very moment in time last year to project a light so bright in a moment of dependency upon Yeshua's field, to allow you to get to know me in my entirety, to shed of the old me. Welcome to this frequency that I held, that I projected, as you begin to shed and get to know of Yeshua's field, and that in which you shall never not be. As you begin to shed of the identity that you've taken on for all of this time up until this point in life, as you tap into the confusion of the death toll of the mothers screaming, of the fathers crying, of the soldiers dying, of the world within this confusion system of what is. Never ever not fail to come into a realization and a conclusion to go within, to find that light, to find that brightness within the darkness surrounding you. As the opposition of self shall never not bring you to a point of pure bliss within the forgiveness essence of neutrality in itself. And as you step through the kingdom of heaven within the darkness crafted to bring you into alignment of what is, just know that Yeshua is by your side. Yeshua has never not been by your side. And as you welcome these energies into your soul's bearing, just know that whatever meant for you shall never escape you. Whatever meant for this humanity shall never escape it. Whatever is meant for Gaia shall never escape her in her entirety within the masculinity and femininity blueprint of her being within its entirety. And I shall absolutely tap in and tell another story within the masculine blueprint of what is, of what it means to be trickled down into this reality field as a divine masculine blueprinted being, slowly emerging into a divine feminine blueprint as time held on to a precipice too great to have ever been able to sink into in this moment in time within a 40-something minute scope in messaging within this video. And I promise to come back. I promise to project this light and to anchor in this frequency. It's been a few weeks that I've been tardy in recording these videos as I settle into my new frequency of delinquency within this darkness of what is. And as I come into my bearings here in my mission scope of what it means to be walking hand in hand, being led by this frequency within heart chakra in itself, being whole in existence, of an effervescent reality field within the dictation of separation in itself, being steady in energetic frequency of what it could ever mean in the reverberation of the tantalization of the deception field within and without this frequency, within all deception fields of tranquility lost, being lost in the wholeness that had brought us here once upon a time, and never bearing into a perception field of seeing above and beyond into a reality field of God's plan, never not seen, into a reality field of trust never not lost. And as I sit and as I speak in rhymes and riddles, just know that you may never come into a realization of the meaning of it all just by listening, watching, projecting, sinking into one video. The true realization shall come once you sink into yourself in bearing, in ways that your heart chakra will deliver to you, in all of the ways that deliverance can ever be delivered, in a time, in a scope, in a moment, in contingency and coherency where you had never not meant to be known, to perception itself, in contingency, to the coherency within consciousness itself, to expand so broad and so wide that your consciousness shall leave your very own body in the way that you never thought you could, in the way that you never deciphered to have learned to be possible in school, in the education systems, that the Luciferian regimes had never not tried to ingrain into your perception field of the identifying factor of who and what you are. And as you awaken one by one, look to your neighbors no more. Look to your pastor no more. Look to your leaders no more. As you look within yourself and find the entire kingdom on the exterior of you, in the reflective systems within and without this frequency of a source consciousness that had never not been you in your entirety of what is. And the beauty of it all shall never escape the stories that I will tell proceeding to this fact, this matter of facts, this matter of truth that can never escape what it means to be here, sitting here in your light working body, to have registered in your consciousness all of the meanings within the scope of why you're here, how you're here, who you're here to become. As you have yet to become that energy that has interlinguished into your perception field to open up into what you've yet to become. And yet, within the delinquency field of it all, ladies and gentlemen, you've come, you're here, within this perception field of it all, you sit, you listen, you watch so intently in a way that shall never escape you within the escapism of it all, within the distraction system that I began to portray myself within and without this consciousness into as I started the beginning of this video. And as I can hear my daughter screaming in the house in the background, arguing with her siblings, with her father, coming into a recognition of this field of delinquency within the doubt frequency, within the systematic ways that our consciousness can ever freak out in any moment in time. You will begin to feel into this freak out moments in time of needing to express this anxiety in ways that will trigger you into the deepest darkness, unbeknownst to man itself, to have ever been able to lead you into a darkness so great in contingency within the brightness of what is to open up your field into the perception of the multiplexities of mirroring systems within this quantum verse itself. So beautiful in contingency, so wide in all that it could ever represent in life, in death, in reincarnation cycles, in source, in all of the beautifying ways within this reflective system of how, why, where, when we choose to die, to live, to breathe, to fractal, to see, to behave, to reject, to project, to alleviate, and to fold this informationary scope within this energy field back into a wholeness within contingency to then reflect it back out into a reality field within consciousness itself to relive within these karmic cycles of what is. And ladies and gentlemen, as I come upon the very end of my 40-minute cycle, bugs are swarming around. I'm in the middle of nature. I'm going to go experience the day like God intended me to do, to anchor in this light in places where the delinquency field is not so much thick, but the demonic energies are running rampant. I myself, within my energy field, am never not able to clear such energies upon this deception field, overriding free will, had it been known that to source frequency that these demonic energies are wreaking havoc against the free will system and mechanisms of others' energy bodies. That is something I am capable of doing, and I shall proceed to go out in public and soak up in the energies of what is to make a difference in the way that I know how to. And as you, my light working friends, begin to be led into places in public to receive and give these activations, listen to your heart chakra. Listen to the path that Source is leading you to behave and to become and to be trudge, to walk through this darkness within the kingdom of heaven of light that you project within any specific moment in time. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I will be back. Have a wonderful day.